Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming to this week's edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Tanya Schrum, and we are joined by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Thank you, and welcome to you both.
How you doing, Tanya?
How you doing?
I am full of tacos from last week. How are you guys doing?
Not full enough of tacos.
Not full tacos.
Gotta get full of tacos. But
lacking.
This week's edition, we're making sure that we have sustainability for more tacos in the future and for future generations.
So true.
The green edition. So, Thad, would you like to tell us what's coming to this week's cover story?
Yeah, so as you said, it's our annual green issue. So we have it's just chock full of sustainability and other green stories. But Kim Weir did the cover story this week, and it's a look at green burial, and specifically an effort to bring the practice to Humboldt County in kind of an official capacity. I think it's something that some folks have done on homesteads and whatnot for quite a while, but. This the story kind of came to us is that she was looking through one of the city of Arcata's kind of visioning and goal setting documents from I think 2 years ago, and formation of a green cemetery was something that the city council had kind of brought forward as a priority, and it has since kind of fallen off. The city has decided it just doesn't. It has too many other kind of pressing needs to prioritize that for staff time and stuff. But that's kind of what got Kim looking into the idea, and through that she caught up with this guy Michael Furness, who's an associate. Semi-retired associate professor at Cal Poly Humboldt, and apparently this has been something that's on his goal list, or something he's been interested in since he was in college at UC Berkeley. And he told Kim kind of the story of that he was in I think it was like a soil science class, and he was out doing field work, and it was raining, and he was just like watching the rain seep into the soil, and had this kind of a moment where he's just like, what do I want to do when I die? What do I want to become of my body? And then he thought, I want to be buried with the trees, and had this vision of kind of, being biodegrading and being ascending into the trees. And so it's always been something he's wanted to do for himself. That's how he imagines his own internment. And then as he kind of set up a life here, and fast forward a couple decades, he started kind of looking around, I think preparing some end of life decisions and that kind of stuff, and realized it's just not an option in Humboldt County. So he has since formed a group, Sacred Grounds. He's also trademarked the term entrement, internment, but entrement, and has started work trying to find a couple spots where he can set up a natural cemetery. And so Kim got to talk to him about kind of his vision, about what all this entails and what it doesn't entail. And it's a great story. I think it's something that a lot of folks up here are going to be pretty interested in.
I definitely am interested in this as well. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I really hope they get some traction, or that it takes root, so to speak, as Kim put in the article.
Indeed. Well, I was talking to my 12-year-old about it last night at dinner, and she said that that's what she wants to do. So he's got one future customer, hopefully long way out, but.
This would definitely be my backup plan to the Viking funeral that I've always wanted, but.
Yes, the Viking funeral is epic, although I'm not sure it's legal. But
it is absolutely not legal, and.
But at the same time, neither is avenging my death, which I expect you both to be on.
I will take up that gauntlet for sure, for certain, Jennifer.
I think the legality depends on just how your death is avenged, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
We just got to think outside the box.
I do like Tanya's Viking funeral, and I'm not giving up on it as an eventual option.
Unfortunately, it's probably wrought with environmental terrorism as far as, what kind of combustible material would have to be used. But this option is environmentally more friendly. And I guess I'm going to have to rethink my fiery end that I have planned on the ocean.
Unless someone comes up with another business. Eco Viking, free idea.
Indeed.
Well, you could also have the fiery end, somewhat of the fiery end you envision by being cremated and then buried in a natural space naturally. The fire and natural burial are not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. But I do appreciate the idea of actually feeding a tree instead of just feeding my whims of wanting to go out like Darth Vader. So
that's nice.
Well, I know we kind of got a little off topic there, but do you have any final thoughts about the cover story before we move on to some news?
I think it's a great story that gives a really kind of just a good overview of what this whole process entails. I think there's some misconceptions out there about natural burial. One quick factoid that I had a misconception about. Everybody is caught up in the 6 feet under thing. Apparently, like 18 inches is the optimal depth to be buried in a natural burial, and that's where the all the little microbes and microorganisms that aid decomposition are kind of at their height in the soil. So no need to dig 6 feet deep, just 18 inches.
Also good to know for those shallow grave needs.
So indeed. But yeah, I think it's, this is something that's kind of now just really in its infancy in Humboldt County. And so I think this is kind of a great place setter story that gives people an understanding of what the idea is and, again, what it entails. And I think we'll probably be writing more about it in the future as Michael Furness and his Sacred Grounds kind of move forward with creating a space to do this.
Absolutely. And I encourage everybody to pick up this week's edition and read the story for yourself, learn, and maybe consider it in your planning for the future, because it comes to us all, right? Well, let's turn to some news of the living in this week's news.
Yeah, so Kim brought us another great story this week on the latest on the Earth Flag saga in Arcata. So regular readers, listeners, viewers will recall that Arcata voters passed a measure to put the Earth flag on top, which was mandated that the city put on all city-owned flagpoles, put the Earth flag above the United States flag and above the state of California flag. And proponents of this initiative felt like that was a strong political message to kind of both say that we are all in one global community and that also the Earth's needs, in this age of climate crisis, need to be prioritized. And so it's kind of their way of making a political statement to the world that these should be the values of Arcata. Measure passed. There was a effort to have it overturned, and that was unsuccessful. And so now the Earth flag has been flying on atop the city flagpoles, including the one on the plaza, for some time now. But the city, was uneasy about this and felt like, kind of understandably, that it was between a legal rock and a legal hard place. State law kind of mandates that it carry out citizen-passed initiatives, but state law also mandates that United States flag and that California flag fly on top of all other flags. And so they felt like they were caught between these competing legal interests, and so sought an opinion from a Humboldt County Superior Court judge kind of asking, what should we do? We don't want to get sued. The city, has understandably, again, some concerns about liability. And so last week, Humboldt County Superior Court Judge Tim Canning weighed in and said that the city cannot legally enforce the initiative because it would be in violation of state law. And so, the ruling takes the Earth earth flag down a couple pegs, but it's not really unexpected. That the chief or the kind of primary question in this is really whether an initiative can be a political statement, and that is a decision kind of beyond the realm of a Humboldt County Superior Court judge. And so when we wrote about this, this effort way back when it first started, there were some legal scholars that we talked to that said, like, this is really a question kind of without precedent, and that they envisioned that it could go all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And so right now, proponents of the initiative, Dave Meserve and some other folks, are kind of getting together, deciding whether they want to appeal. It seems really likely that they will, and they have asked the city to hold off on lowering the earth flag until that appeal goes through. It's unclear if the city's going to do that or not, but likely we're going to be kind of hearing this process play out for some years still to go.
Well, I very much appreciate that story from Kim, and I look forward to updates in the future. It is definitely an interesting decision to make, and I know only from growing up with maritime law how precise that needs to be and how much trouble you can get in. So flag law, who would have thunk it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting. I mean, you can understand why, there's a civic and a community interest in not allowing, a city like Arcata to, I don't know, like legalize murder or something like that. That's like obviously in conflict with state law, but would have all these detrimental effects. This is kind of bucking state law to make a political statement and a value statement. And that kind of, obviously raises some First Amendment issues that get really interesting at least to legal nerds like me.
Absolutely. And speaking of measures, we also have an update by you about Measure S.
Yeah, so again, just kind of updating a story we've been writing about for a long time, but Measure S, the cannabis tax ordinance, which imposes an excise tax on cultivation in the county, has been kind of suspended in some form or vastly reduced for the last couple of years because of just the economic challenges that cannabis farmers have been facing. But the Board of Supervisors, while it kind of allowed extensions on payments, did not kind of forgive tax bills. And so there was a total of, I think it was $14.3 million that cannabis farmers owed the county for taxes that had been billed but not yet paid. And the county wants to collect on that money. So set a March 31st deadline for anybody with outstanding Measure S balances to reach a payment plan under which they'd pay off the entire balance by March 31st of 2025. And if not, then they're going to move forward with suspending folks' permits. And so we finally got the details of that. And the county is, I think it was about 350 farms have entered into these payment plans, and 400 plus have not. And so the county is moving forward with suspending those permits. And I think they owe a combined like $6.3 million, the farms that did not enter into payment plans. And there's some big questions about whether the county will ever recoup that money.
It's really unfortunate. I hate to think about all those farms that are possibly going to go under. Yeah. But I also understand revenue is revenue, right? Maybe there will be a third option that somebody will come up with, some kind of forgiveness.
Maybe.
It's definitely been a difficult, cumbersome knot to decriminalizing and moving forward. So I definitely appreciate that. That you're reporting on this and that the community is staying aware of what's going on with their neighbors that are trying to be legit.
Definitely.
All right. Well, continuing on, we're going to switch now to Jennifer, and she's going to tell us what's cooking out of the sea.
What's cooking indeed. I think this is a good time to make a plug for seaweed in general.
Absolutely.
I know those of you who are like pro seaweed already, you're buying your little crispy seaweed snacks, your monthly trip to Tomo and Arcata involves the seaweed salad. I know the seaweed salad people are strong out there. They're devoted. Um, there's so much more you can enjoy. And this week, I got to talk to the folks who run Sunken Seaweed, which has not been in stores for very long, so it might be new to some of you. Um, back in like before, like 2014, 2016, the founders of Sunken Seaweed, Tori Polizzi and Leslie Boer, they were at HSU, or then HSU, and they were doing all kinds of like marine life surveying work. And they had the very unpleasant job of surveying, recording, and monitoring the death of sea stars and the death of bull kelp. And if you've been paying attention, particularly, hey, Kim Ware again, Kim Ware's been reporting a lot on the cascading catastrophe of bull kelp, and it's like a horrible food web nightmare in which starving sea urchins, purple sea urchins, if you see one, eat it, are eating up all the bull kelp, and therefore other creatures that rely on it, like our friend the abalone, don't have it, and they're starving out and dying off. So there's been, and she's also reported on this really incredible effort to build back the bull kelp populations. So once these two graduated, Boer and Polizzi started doing more research on things you can do with seaweed growth and seaweed farming. And at first they were working down in San Diego in the Bay, and they were doing things like growing kelp for bioremediation, because kelp is kind of like our friend the oyster. It cleans. If you grow it, it actually makes the world better. It absorbs toxins and stuff. It can clean up the pH in an acidic climate. It's pretty amazing stuff. So they were doing some research on that, and they wanted to have a kind of dual purpose business. They wanted to be able to both sell seaweed for eating purposes, and they wanted to be able to still help with the kelp. So they came back up to Humboldt County, because you do not want to eat seaweed that has been growing in San Diego Bay. No shade on San Diego, but they do absorb all the pollutants and all the toxins. Yeah, don't do that. That seaweed you're eyeing in the fish tank, don't do it. So they came up here with our beautiful clear water, and they started a business. They hooked up with Hog Island Oyster Company to use their seawater intake, which apparently it's hard to get. You think it's hard to get a liquor license in Humboldt County? Just try and get a seawater intake. So they kind of piggybacked onto their operation. And what they do is they have two kinds of seaweed growth. They grow bull kelp out in the water. They grow seaweed out in the water, and they have tanks on land. They have these 8 huge tanks on land. That's like, what is it, like 12,000 gallons of water in each one. Wait, is it 12,000? No, it's 1,200 gallons. It's crazy. I don't know math. So anyway, this stuff grows so crazy fast that I have to refer to my notes, because every time I say it out loud, I don't believe it. The 8 tanks they've got, because of the kinds of growing they do, which is basically just like tumbling the seaweed in water so that it's constantly getting rotated into the sun. Is that why I'm only 5'3"? I don't get enough sun. Anyway, it makes this stuff grow crazy fast. And in a year, all told, they can put out like 28,000 pounds of seaweed, which is
amazing.
I don't know, sea bananas. So half of that seaweed, or I should say, pardon me, about 80% of that seaweed last year went to help with the kelp. So what they do is they start sprouting the kelp on these lines underwater. It's kind of like oyster farming, right? You give a surface for the thing to grow on, and then you tend it. So they have these underwater like laundry lines, and they put the kelp seeds onto it, and then, or kelp spawn onto it, and then it grows. And in like, boy, this is, again, I have to look at it because it feels completely crazy. In about a month, it goes from a little 3 millimeter baby seaweed or baby bull kelp into a 14-footer. And what they do with that is they ship it over to a funded program in Mendocino where they are putting out kelp for the purple urchins to eat. And it's kind of like baiting them away from the fields of baby kelp that are planted in that area, the kind of like regrowth baby kelp. And also it helps to get the urchins not in starvation mode where they're just freaking out and eating everything in sight. Can they see? I don't know. But we've all been there, right? Come on. We've all been on an ill-advised diet or doing that weird intermittent fasting thing where suddenly it's time to eat and you go nuts. This is where the poor little urchins are. Again, eat them. And so they're trying to get them out of starvation mode so that they'll be normal and not eat all the bull kelp they can find and be constantly hunting for it so that the kelp can grow, other species that depend on it can kind of bounce back, including our friend, the delicious abalone. So they're doing both ends of the business. The seaweed that they are putting into the market for eating includes the red, sort of feathery looking dulse, which is so pretty and kind of like purpley. It's so pretty. It's the prettiest thing in your salad. And they do what they call bougie furikake, or that's how he described it to me. Furikake being also bougie furikake. I no longer perform under that name. But furikake is basically like a dry, salty spice that you sprinkle onto rice, and it's delightful. People do all kinds of things with it. I believe the Pineapple Express puts it on their French fries, not necessarily this brand, but furikake. So it has many uses. So they're selling a lot of that. They're selling dried seaweed. They're selling fresh. The fresh stuff lasts in your fridge for like a week. And they were very generous in sharing a recipe with us, which is in the paper this week. And that is for dulse and lobster mushroom pasta.
I'm already a fan.
I know, right? This is the kind of wonderful, like, eat your way out of a problem food that I love. Not only is it vegetarian, and also if you leave off the Parmesan, it's vegan. But this stuff grows without pollutants. They pump the seawater into the seaweed tanks, and they filter it and they, clean it. And then after it has circulated with the seaweed, they pump it back out into the sea cleaner than it started. So, I mean, as you put it, yeah, there's no pesticides. They do all of this. That 28,000 pounds of seaweed grows on, like, what did he tell me? It was it's less than an acre. This spot that they have out in Samoa. And, talk about an efficient food source. And it's like nutrient dense. It's full of all kinds of vitamins. And apparently it's high in protein. People who are out there working out. And it's just kind of, it makes sense. It's a food that was, very much part of local indigenous diets. Because why wouldn't it be? It's this wonderful nutrient-rich thing that grows in the sea where it can be harvested. And so it's long been a part of the diets of coastal people. So it's just a lovely, lovely thing that they're able to bring back, and you can eat it with zero eco-guilt.
And actually be encouraging, conservation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jennifer, we ran out of time, but I want to plug your amazing article on billionaires brainstorming climate change measures. And I really hope everybody gets a chance to read and chuckle.
Yeah, it's important that you remember it's satire.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to come and, nobody's going to turn your fat into fuel. You're okay.
If only I'd be running a block. Well, that wraps up our time for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. pick up your copy today, or of course, you can find it online at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrum. Thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast community and the worldwide.